Hello, my most amazing artists. Today we're going to be making dots in celebration of Dot Day. Now, you're going to have a white piece of paper where you're going to use a pencil to write your name and class code on the back. It's important to always write your name and class code on the back, and in this case, I'm writing it in the center. That way I don't have to worry about getting my name cut off later on. Now I'm going to flip my paper over, and I'm going to use a big circle tracer. Now, if you don't have a tracer, you could use a bowl, you could use a lid, or just freehand your circle. But if you're in class with me, then you can hold down that lid with one hand as you trace it with the other. Make sure you're holding it still and moving your hand around it. That way your circle doesn't get a little bit wobbly. So holding it down on the place so that it shows the full circle and going around with my pencil, making sure I get every part of it before I remove it. After I have my circle, now I can start to talk about the materials that we'll be using today. Today, I'm going to be using some oil pastels. Oil pastels are like paint. They also blend together like paint, which is super cool, but they're also as messy as paint. So to help guide me today, I'm going to make a spiral starting from the middle of my paper and moving towards the edge of that dot. On that spiral, I'm going to start to color with the oil pastel. Now, I'm going to color in a weird way. I'm not trying to color in all my space. I'm trying to do a jagged zigzag line along that spiral. I'm moving in that zigzag motion round and round, following that spiral. So I'm chasing it all the way around, not giving up, making sure I'm leaving very little white space in between my up and down lines. It's almost like I'm a machine that just goes up and down, up and down, up and down. So think of your hand as a machine that's automatically going round and round that spiral. It's important not to give up on that zigzag motion. It's not like scribbling. Even if it looks a little messy, it's definitely not a scribble pattern. This will not work if you scribble, and it also won't work if you just color it in a smooth spiral. It has to have that little bit of zigzag texture to it and pattern. Now I'm going to pick a new color. You can use whatever colors you want. You don't have to do the same thing that I'm doing because you're the artist, of course. But it is a good idea to use analogous colors. Analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. That means they'll blend well together because oil pastels do mix together. If I used red and then used green, it would make brown in between the two colors. And I want to make sure that I'm using some really bright colors here, not trying to make brown in between all my tie-dye. So I'm chasing around my spiral, using that oil pastel to create that same zigzag pattern, but I'm chasing around on top of my last color. I can zigzag into that color just a little bit, especially because these are analogous colors, and I'm making sure they blend well together. Now I'm using a yellow to chase my orange, so I'm going in a rainbow order. That is a sure way to tell that your colors are analogous, but you could do cool colors, you could do warm colors. So far I've used warm colors here, red, orange, and yellow. Or you could create your own pattern as long as you know that which colors are going to mix well together. Now, looks like I don't have any room, but I still have some white space. So I'm going to try to fit in as many zigzags as I can, making sure that I fill in every little bit of white space, or mostly. I can even overlap with that pink. I can go over top of the red. This is going to probably be my last line that I can fit. I've tried to fit it in pretty tight, and I think that's all I can do for today. Now I'm going to use a white oil pastel to blend and really give that tie-dye effect. Now, if your oil pastel looks dirty, it's because it was sitting in there with the others. So what you can do is hold it on its side or just on the front or the back, whichever way you want, and scribble with it on the sides or the back of your paper. This is going to clean off the oil pastel. All it had was a little bit of color from sitting next to the other oil pastels. So all you have to do is give it a little scribble and it's good to go. I'm starting in the middle and pulling out and down towards the outsides of my dot. So I'm starting in the middle and pulling up or pulling to the side or down, just moving in that outward motion towards the edges of my dot. That's going to create that tie-dye look, by moving it out, just like it's spiral and it's spinning in that motion. If it didn't quite work with the oil pastel, maybe you didn't press hard enough, you could even use your finger in that same motion, starting in the middle and pulling towards the edge. You could do that same thing, but just beware, it's very messy. This is going to be a way that your hands definitely need to use an art wipe or hand sanitizer to get that oil pastel off. Make sure you're not wiping it on your clothes either, because it could stain. When I'm done, I'm going to use my scissors. Now I'm going to use my scissors after I sign it. Remember that in the book, Vashti learned that artists always sign their artwork when they're done, so when it gets hung up in a gallery or an art show, everybody knows who made it. Then I'm going to cut out my dot, and I'm making sure that I'm doing baby shark chomps, making sure that with one hand I'm holding the paper and my other hand, the cutting hand, is the one that opens and closes the scissors in baby shark chomps. Making sure I'm making small, careful cuts around that circle line and not going crazy with giant chomps, because then I'd have a jagged edge there. So doing my best to cut along that original line, crumple up my scrap papers or my trash, throw it away, and now I'm good to go and to clean up my area. Always leave your table better than you found it, or your studio space. And now I'm ready to celebrate Dot Day, and this can go and be hung up. Here, let's do a super speedy review, just in case that was a lot of steps. So I take my paper, write my name on it, draw my spiral and my circle, and then I chase that circle or that spiral around with that zigzag line with the oil pastel, and then I keep chasing it and chasing it. So I'm taking that oil pastel and moving in that machine zigzag motion and chasing it round and round. If it helps you remember, you could turn your paper as you go as you do this. Remember that analogous colors are going to blend best, so in this dot I decided to use all cool colors: green, blue, and purple. If you forget which colors are analogous, well, you could look around my art room or at a color wheel. There's a lot of ways to tell. If you look at a rainbow, if the colors are next to each other in that rainbow, they're analogous. Any three colors, I would say, are going to blend well together. Then I take that white oil pastel, moving it out towards the edges from the center, or I could use my finger, and then cut it out. I'm all done after I sign it, of course, to show that it's a finished masterpiece. All right, artists, have fun creating your dots in celebration of Dot Day.